Hey guys, welcome back to River Talk. You know, there's nothing better than curling up on a bearskin rug in front of a fire with a good book. Is Randal Wallace's book what I'll be curling up with? We'll find out here in a bit. Hey, buddy.
Hey, how you doing?
I don't have a bearskin rug. I don't even have a fireplace. But I do know I can get a copy of this book relatively easy. Welcome to the show.
Oh, well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man,
Deacon
over there.
brother.
We go way back, man.
Oh
Thank
my
you.
gosh, man, you kidding?
Really?
I've owed him forever.
Always vote your conscience. It's a book available Barnes & Noble?
On Amazon.com.
Amazon.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's a book on a lot of things, politics mainly, and kind of the crisis, I guess, of what I think is a spirit in the nation right now, and a lot of the mean-spiritedness that you see this kind of dominating, and this sort of some answers to that kind of starts it out, and then some policy stuff. You know, I ran for Congress many years ago, and so a lot of the
What year was that?
2012.
Okay.
Which is
Wow.
way down the road.
Oh yeah,
from
man.
now.
Well, you were there for a long time.
And then I was on city council, for 16 years.
16 years.
And wow, that's hard to believe too. I was 30 years old when I got elected, but I kind of try to focus on how much different it was when I got started. Which really, I worked on campaigns prior to being on city council, so it used to not be what you see today. This pretty severe division, even though people kind of fought here and there. And so it's just some answers to that.
So you're saying that there's a possibility you'll sell 50% of those books since we're split now.
Well, you know what? I did try to do something when I was trying to address some of the issues to take.
Give somebody a little.
Democrats and Republicans.
Right.
There's a chapter that's probably my favorite in there that kind of looks at the power that relationships used to have to get things done. And one of them actually, and that section I wrote a while back, but profiling Strom Thurmond, who some of you probably remember.
I remember Strom, yeah.
Are you kidding? He was my hero, Strom was. I love Strom Thurmond to death.
Well, I did too. I thought
He's a good man. I liked him.
But he and Joe Biden were really good friends. Who's now running?
Is that
for
right?
president.
Well, I assume they would be. I guess.
Yeah,
And,
Biden spoke at his funeral.
He did. He
Memory
asked-
serves me correct. Yeah.
And he spoke at his 90th birthday party. In fact, it was Joe Biden and Richard Nixon who spoke at that. But those two came together to kind of resolve a lot of issues that were in front of the Judiciary Committee. They traded places as chairman of that committee, and they got a lot of judges through, got a crime bill through, all because they were able to work together. And I do have a chapter in here that kind of profiles the situation that went on with Brett Kavanaugh, who was the judge.
Yeah, right.
And so you can see that that's not happening today.
No.
And I also took a look at, if you remember, a senator named Dan Inouye, who was the senator from Hawaii, and Ted Stevens, who was a senator from Alaska, who were very good friends. And the two of them came together when they, basically they served almost from day one of the two states coming in. Inouye did. Stevens came in '68, but they became friends and served on the Appropriations Committee, and it didn't matter who was on which side was in charge. They worked together to build Alaska and Hawaii. And you might think of Hawaii as a big tourism destination, but it's a lot of rural parts of that state.
Right.
And so the two of them did a lot together to kind of move those states forward. And I thought they were great examples of how it used to be and how people used to work together to get some things done.
There's no dirt in this book. Let's cut to the quick here.
Let's do a
There's
little
no Myrtle
cutthroat
Beach
here.
dirt
That's
in this
right.
book.
Yeah.
I mean, you got any stories? I mean, I know you got them. I just don't want to know if they're in here.
I did try not to do that. But there are some stories about the town of Myrtle Beach where I do go over the airport as a kind of an example of being the odd man out when the airport debate went on between the city and the county. And it was me that was in opposition to where my council was about moving the terminal. Originally, it was going to be on one side of the road. And if you remember, the Community Appearance Board shot it down.
Right.
And I kind of making the example because the title of the book is Always Vote Your Conscience. Don't take it personally and don't fight the same old battles over and over again. And y'all may remember a county councilman named James Frazier.
Oh,
Sure, absolutely.
That was advice that he gave me. And I guess my point with the airport story was, I was on the losing end of that. And, you have a choice. You can either stir up trouble and make it worse or, kind of accept defeat and move on and not cause a division between the city and the county, which was really bad, if you remember at the time.
Well, now, how do you feel about it now that it's on this side? It's not in the proper of Market Common there.
I'd say at this point it's worked out.
I'm thinking, that would have been a nightmare, I think, wouldn't it? Traffic-wise, and plus I like it because I own some property on this side over here.
Yeah,
so I love
there's
you,
the
man.
whole truth of that.
I love
right
that
there.
you failed.
Well, I appreciate it.
That's all right.
But it's in the way
Honesty.
it needed to be.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
However, we had made a deal at one point for it to go over there, and the county had put a bunch of money into that, and Senator Graham had also arranged. I don't know how much money it was now off the top of my head, but it was quite a substantial amount to go to the terminal on the other side.
Right.
And then the Community Appearance Board, stopped that, and all that fell apart, and we were on the verge of, city county councils going to war with each other.
Boxing gloves.
And once it was resolved, we immediately we kept talking, and we used to meet twice a year, and we worked to kind of smooth that over, and I think it's worked out. You got the ATAP Park over there, who I think the new folks are going to have a chance to develop, and create a chance to grow a different kind of economy there.
Right.
And so that's a good thing. And of course, the airport terminal is beautiful. It's right there on Harrelson Boulevard. It's easy to get to. So
well, you got plenty of room to expand. So.
And I guess that would be my advice, just right there, about how to get around there's a current issue going on, and I'm not as well versed on it over I think it's the hospitality tax between the cities and the county. About you just keep talking and keep meeting. Right now they're in court and they're fighting, and I try to stay out of the new people's business because the last thing they want is an old guy telling them what to do. But that would be my advice: just keep staying at the table and keep talking, because I think you can always figure out a way to resolve it. And I think I-73 is
Speaking of sitting around the table and talking.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's a pretty important project. So, that's kind of what we're doing here. So.
Well, where did the political bug come from? I remember. I mean, when I'm thinking, I know you worked on Bob Dole's campaign. That's '96, so obviously you're getting kicked into it. Maybe '95. Was the Republican takeover of the House something that turned you on and got you fired up?
Well, if you want, this is the truth, and it's in the book. I got involved in politics when I was 9 years old.
Okay.
And John Napier wrote the introduction for me. That was the first campaign that I actually ever got a chance to work on. I was not, but here's the story, and I didn't do a whole lot. I think I held a sign and sat in a chair with my legs couldn't even get to the floor. But I had originally, my mother in 1960 was a student teacher, and she had a class that had an old scrap. Their assignment was to keep a scrapbook of the Nixon Kennedy election.
Okay.
And somebody left it in her classroom, and she took it to give them back to them whenever they came back and got it, and they never did. And that thing stayed in our house and floated around for 20 years. And when I was 9, I got all into that. And at the same time, Ted Kennedy was running. I hope I don't get myself in trouble here, but Ted Kennedy was running, and I, being kind of a goofy kid, had a little homemade sign for Ted Kennedy and went down to the end of the 67th Avenue and held that sign up for that whole 1980 primary. And when he lost, I flipped that sign over and did one for Ronald Reagan, making me probably the only person in America that was for Ted Kennedy and Ronald Reagan in the same election.
What was wrong with? Wait, how old were you?
I was 9.
Yeah, see, that's why we shouldn't let kids vote.
Well, you're a traitor. You're a dadgum traitor.
Well, here's where I got lucky. Instead of the Democratic chairman stopping on the side of the road, Al Terrell.
I remember Al.
Yeah, Mr. Golf had those little golfing places around. There's little miniature golf courses.
Jungle Safari Golf now.
Yeah, I like Al. Yeah, I liked him.
Well, Al stopped off and arranged for me to go to the Republican headquarters, and that's what got me involved with John Napier's campaign and Ronald Reagan in '80. And in '82 and '84, I came back, and so that bug bit me early.
Okay.
And so I was involved with it all that time.
Well, we live in the same basic geographic area. I guess you probably vote Ocean Forest 3.
I do.
Yeah. So I remember that there was a lot of turmoil locally with the Republican Party. Big surprise. And we were both kind of working the precinct over there at one time. I mean, trying to get things. That was prior to you running for city council.
Yeah, or I might have been on.
Maybe you'd served.
I'd been on like 1 year. You're talking about the year I ran for chairman. That was a
yeah.
I don't talk about that in here. But,
okay.
But
that was fun, wasn't it?
But it was, that was. I always tell people, when you think there's division now, at the night that I ran for that, in that convention, we had to have the police come in and sit through the convention with us. We had a guard that watched me and my opponent, And he and I are now friendly. So I've talked to him in fairly recently, but at the time it was kind of tense. And then there were 3 other ones that walked the halls walked in the thing to keep it straight. And we were there till the sun came up. In fact, if you remember Steve Porter, the radio personality, I had won the original count by 1 vote. They had that on the front page of the Sun News. And when I came home, I turned on the radio. He was announcing that I had won. I had to call the radio station and say, no, I actually lost by 4 votes after 2 recounts in the middle of the night. And get it straight, so he didn't have it wrong.
Your own little Dewey defeats Truman type thing.
I have that newspaper at my house.
That's great.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right.
It said Wallace squeaks by, and it had a little story about me winning.
Well, that's a good thing right there. Maybe that right there ought to be the title of your follow-up book, Wallace Squeaks By.
That'd be a pretty apt description.
I'm pretty much I see eye to eye with you on a lot of politics, but when you do get to the local level, party ideology kind of goes away. And I think Tip O'Neill said all politics is local. I believe it was him, and that was a great example of 2 just totally different trains of thought being able to work together. It's nutty now. I mean, I think we've always had that bubbling under the surface, but now it's just nutty.
Well, it's one of the things I do try to address throughout the book is we've gotten too the extremes have taken over. I don't know, it used to be you had those folks in the middle, maybe a little center right or center left that could come together and try to figure out a way to move an issue forward. Mm-hmm. Instead, now it's become as divided and far as
far right, far left. I mean,
and then you have factions within the factions that
right,
and you see that in our local party now, and where it really concerns me is. You go on these social media sites and you get accused of stuff. Accuse people of criminal behavior.
Tell me about it.
And just smears and attacks. And you can't go back from that. There's a guy that's the head of the I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but the American Enterprise Institute, and he was talking about we're in an age of contempt where people in politics and government talk about each other with utter contempt. Just they look at you as though you have no worth at all. And when somebody talks to you like that, you don't ever get over it, you know what I mean? And all it does is make the problems worse and worse, and there's really no way to find the middle ground because, if somebody accuses you of being a criminal, you don't want to deal with them anymore, and they look down on you for whatever their issue is.
Well, used to Democrats or Republicans, I mean, in D.C. or anywhere, they would, on camera, they would go against each other and say, well, I'm better for this or whatever. Then they go out and have a cocktail later on together. I mean, it was that kind of a deal.
That's what, and that turns into a swamp, Deacon. It turns into a swamp.
Then they get drunk and beat each other up now.
But there's a story in this book that I use about Everett Dirksen, who used to be the Senate minority leader, and Lyndon Johnson, and it was just like that. It said Senator Dirksen would call him in the afternoon and say, hey, I need to come up and talk to you. And then he would rise up in the Senate and accuse him of every crime you could think of.
That's right.
And then they'd get together at 6 o'clock, and they'd have a couple drinks, and Johnson would be, and I wouldn't have talked about me like you did today, and they'd laugh about it, and then they'd work out a deal to put so many Republicans on one commission, and he'd get so many votes for whatever it was he was working on, their deal would be done. And that's a little bit of a swamp creature kind of mentality.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you do get things done that way, and I do hate to say it, but that's reality in life, business, marriage, whatever you're in. You got to be able to work together and figure it all out. And it might have a little bit of the old wrestling mentality of they're all friends after the camera goes off.
Oh, absolutely,
you get things done.
Oh, yeah. True. I saw Black Jack Mulligan and Johnny Weaver sharing a Happy Meal one time, and it messed my day up. Always vote your conscience. You doing book signings anywhere? Thinking about it?
Yes, sir. We're trying to get some things going right now. I've been fortunate to get a couple of shows in, like we're doing, and then I'm hoping to find a location where we can do a book signing and invite people to come out and maybe speak a little bit about it. And I hope it'll in a small way make a little bit of a difference because I did start it. It's a long story with the book, but I did start it with some desire to want to address what I feel like is really a crisis of spirit in the country and all this division that we're having to deal with because we really need to get the country back on the right track because there are a lot of issues out there that need to be resolved. And people who are, health care is a perfect example where people's life and death and they're worried about it, and you can't just be fighting to the death and not getting anything done, because those folks need answers.
Exactly.
There's a simple solution, Randall. Come join the Libertarians. We'll take you in. Randall, good seeing you, man. I'm pushed for time.
Yeah.
I got to
You're the
pay
man,
some
brother.
bills.
Yes,
Maybe
sir.
we'll get a sponsor
Appreciate
for
seeing
Love
you.
Shack. We'll be right back.